我觉得我们队和上赛季相比最大的变化就是我们在前中期的失误会大大的减少。
我覺得 JDG 上的中球球是好不錯的選手，期待今天的對手。
肌肉选手是一个很擅长战士型的上单的，对线也比较凶悍。
早跟天上路比较强的话，但是我们上路也不弱。我对我们上单注目非常有信心。
中野配合的话，基本上是没有什么问题。我们中野应该不会输给他们中野吧？
如果我们状态回来的话，我觉得我们打他们还是很有希望的。
我觉得 Yuki 是一位就很年轻，然后也挺努力的一位有天赋的选手，挺厉害的，我觉得。
我们最近训练赛打得还不错，然后我们所有人都会去尽全力去打。
希望能够赢下京东的，然后也会对他们有做很多准备。
我们现在势头很猛，就算去了杭州，我们也会把这股势头带到老干爹主场战胜他们。
Week 3 is upon us. The LPL is back for our final game of this 4-day weekend. But hey, that means that we get to take stock. We're back in Hangzhou in the LGD arena, and their guardian angel is nowhere to be found this time. He was holding up a sign last week saying days until LGD victory 1. And then when they started winning, he started peeling off the numbers, so it was down to 0. But then by the end, he had to add the 1 back onto it because LGD ended up losing that set. But now it's the chance to see if LGD can recover in front of their hometown fans. They're going to have to do it up against the likes of JD Gaming, the only team so far to have taken a win off of Royal Never Give Up in spring, and still they are making a rise towards the top of the standings. Welcome everyone. My name is Dom. Joining me here is Clement Chu as well, and we're going to be getting into that matchup in just a moment. Before we do though, let's take a look at the standings and see how everything shakes out for getting into week 3 of the LPL, because we are starting to see some divisions between these top tier teams and the bottom tier teams.
Yeah, the big one is Rogue Wars still remains undefeated, not even a single map lost so far, while W has been clawing back in week 2, recovering from their 0-3 start. Over on the eastern side, IG and RNG are still dominating their leagues respectively, and we're seeing a lot of new action from those young teams in Jingdong and Suning Gaming.
Yeah, they're going to be putting on a lot of fun for us today in our matches. We actually get to see them. Up first, it's JD versus LGD, with JD Gaming coming up in just a few minutes. And later on this afternoon, we get the chance to see Invictus Gaming versus Suning Gaming. This is the second time IG has made it onto the English broadcast of the LPL since playoffs last split. So it's time for us to officially do a check-in on Invictus Gaming later today and see where they're really at. Spoiler alert, they're still really good, but we'll get a chance to talk about that a little bit later. I think that because it's Monday, we've had 2 weeks of the LPL. We've had about 68 games of play so far. It's time for us to do a meta check-in with what's happening on patch 8.11. We've got tons of experience with marksmen and bruisers. We've got lots of games, and everybody's saying marksmen are dead. They're kaput, they're gone. We should all just play Heimerdinger and submit to the new meta, but that's not the case. Dr. Clement, what's the prognosis? Are marksmen truly dead?
The patient is not dead, but I wouldn't really say he's alive either. And we'll tell you why by the end of this segment. But the first thing we do need to check in with are the stats themselves. Are marksmen still being played? And we're going to compare the 2 most competitive leagues, LPL and the LCK. And if you look at the stats right here, the LPL, they're still the majority of the bot lane position. Marksmen are still the most played over here in the LPL. And even when you change over to the LCK, they're still sitting around 40-something%. So marksmen are definitely still alive in this sense. And the difference here is quite minor. The LCK does play a little bit more cheese in terms of their bot lanes. We're seeing a lot more of the top teams, especially FLICKR, going with the Mordekaiser in the bot.
And of course, it's no surprise, LPL has been favoring Lucian for his outplay ability, Kai'Sa, because you've got Uzi in the league, how could you not? And Ezreal just behind it. Meanwhile, LCK, like you said, Ezreal, Lucian, and Ashe on that far side. But that being said, just because marksmen are being played, we've got to ask how they're actually doing, especially when we compare the fact that most of the time they're being played against non-marksmen.
Yeah, because that's the big question. If marksmen are going to go extinct, it's because bruisers are going to push them out of the meta. That was everyone's assumption. However, the stats actually show a different side. In the LPL, marksmen are still doing very fine. And even in the LCK, where a lot of bruiser team compositions are doing very well, especially Mordekaiser, they're still holding their ground at around 50%. Now, we dug deeper into these stats, and what we found out is that if you reach 3 items, then marksmen still dominate the meta. You get a 77% win rate overall if you are in that marksman spot. And that's especially true of the LCK, where you can see that rate jump up to over 90%.
And to be perfectly clear, this is in those marksman versus a non-marksman matchup. So if you're a Jhin one-trick and you want to continue to play this off-meta champion, you find yourself against a Yasuo, you just need to scale up and wait until that late game. Is that still true of the LPL? Can all of our teams sit and wait for 3 items if they want to play marksman?
That's our first big conclusion here, is that yes, marksmen can still be played. However, you do commit yourself to the very late game. Marksmen, in terms of their range and their utility in terms of sieging and closing out the game, are still bar none.
Okay.
So if you want to go for that style, if you have a really good marksman, if you want to go late game, ADCs are your go-to. But then to your second point, is it for everyone?
Yes.
And that's where I say the patient is actually not doing well, too well. Because even though marksmen are doing well in terms of their overall win rate, all of the wins are very concentrated on just a few teams. If you look at the names right here, these represent the marksmen that went up against bruisers and have multiple wins. There's not a lot of them. There's only 7 of them out of 24 total teams in these 2 regions. So you can see that if you want to go for a marksman, you also have to be very, very good with your marksman right here.
And this is what we get to see as iBoy gets the chance to play Lucian. He's one of those names on the list. Of course, you've got the likes of Uzi up there with him. SMLZ doing the same thing as iBoy gets to show off on this Lucian that he took yesterday. We'll get a chance to see Uzi in a moment. So then you're telling me, if you have a star AD carry, or you think your AD carry is a star, go ahead. Continue to play the marksman, but just be aware that you might need to stall out the game until you get that core 3 items.
So we're seeing 3 teams in the LPL stick all the way to marksman, and they're doing incredible. EDG, RNG, and of course, what's the other one I can't... Oh, Jack the Elf. IG are all sticking to pure marksman, and they're doing well for themselves. They understand how to play around it. They have top-tier marksmen. However, if you're a bottom and mid-tier team in the LPL, you're actually much better off going for a bruiser composition. The stats show that. If you're not one of those 4 teams, then your win rate actually goes to 100%. Bruiser versus marksman.
That's some exceptional stats. And hey, if the stats make sure that it's true, then it has to be true. As now we get to see Uzi showing off on his Kai'Sa. It's always so much fun to see him play that champion, especially as a Kai'Sa one-trick myself. But what does this actually mean getting into our first matchup? As we'll get the chance, actually, sorry, I totally just remembered. We've got a chance now to talk about the best of the Rift and how the, sorry, my producer's talking in my ear. He's telling me multiple things. What do you want from me, producer man? We have nothing about that. So we'll talk about JD versus LGD instead.
Okay, no problem.
We're getting mixed signals here. Sometimes the wires get crossed. It's that scene in Ghostbusters where they start to cross the streams and then it doesn't. And they're like, no, don't do it. And it blows. Tell me about JD versus LGD.
Okay, but JD Gaming, this is a really interesting team for me because I call them the king of chaos. If you look at their gold graph, they look like a really bad team. They're actually losing in gold at all points in the game. However, they're sitting at 64% win rate. Something doesn't really add up here, and this is my conclusion from watching their games, is that they're so hectic. They bring in so many team fights that they're able to kind of win the game when it goes back past 25 or 30 minutes off crucial team fights and just win from there, even with the gold deficit. So, you know, this is a really crazy, a really high-tempo team. And on the flip side, they're going up against LGD, which is kind of in a dumpster fire right now. I think that's a fair thing to say. They have 1 winning lane, and their team fight is actually their worst part so far. They have no cohesion in team fight. I don't really see where they're going with their picks because they're trying to commit to full bruisers, but at the time not like fully committing either. They're lacking engaged a lot
to
of times.
expand upon the discussion that we had earlier, because they don't have one of these star AD carries on their lineup, we should be expecting a more bruiser-oriented matchup out of JD versus LGD. And the question then becomes, who does that favor as we prepare to go into this? I'm sure we'll get the opportunity to find that answer in just a moment as we bring up the team lineups. JD Gaming, you've got Zoom, Clid, Yagao, Loken, and Lumao.
So Lumao currently sitting at the most deaths in the LPL at 42. They have played a lot of games, but that's just an indication of the hectic style that Jingdong are playing right now. They get a lot of first bloods. They're actually good in their dragon control, but they're just non-stop action. 0.82 champion kills per minute, sitting at only second place to Invictus Gaming in the LPL. So a lot of fast-paced action happening here.
And of course, Yagao in the mid lane got the chance to put on a master class with his Yasuo against Suning just a few days ago. We've been looking at Clid, we've been looking at Loken. One of the players on this team has got to step up and be a carry, and Yagao has absolutely done it for them. He's going to be taking on Jinu, Amy, Yuki, Y4, the new AD carry for LGD, and PYL, of course, backed by their new coach, UDJ.
And of course, Y4 coming over from the roster from RNG. They started the split with FDY, didn't find success, and then put Y4 back into the team lineup right here. LGD still very much a team looking for the core identity on 8.11. They like to roam a lot, but when they group together, good things simply do not happen for their team. I would like to share one of the mottos for PYL.
Okay.
Our generation's motto is live fast and die young.
Yes.
Well, PYL's motto is live fast and die alone, because he has the most isolated deaths of the LPL in terms of the spring split so far, and that has kind of continued in summer. They do need better shot calling, and they do need to be more aware of where they're going on the map.
So this is something that we've talked about for LGD for, it feels like, years at this point. PYL is the puppeteer. If he's able to control you single-handedly, then he sets a very strong pace. He's very experienced. He's able to direct the game in a clear way. But when you don't listen, or when he isn't very clear with his instructions, that's when he splits off and does his own thing. Because he has a very clear way of thinking about the game, it just doesn't translate to his teammates.
I would even go a bit further beyond that. I think a lot of time PYL himself might be sending his teammates a little bit of mixed messaging as well. If you look at this team, I have a lot of questions for PYL's actually draft. If you think about Bruiser meta, you know, you want engage with your entire team, but PYL has actually been going back to the Soraka.
Yes.
Which they're the only team to play Soraka in the entire league, and they have no wins with it. In fact, they only have one game where they have an above 1 KDA. So it's not been looking great for them, and it just seems to be a matter of bringing this team together on the same page and going, hey, this is the strategy we want to run. Bruiser all in initiation, Bruiser's on every lane. Okay, check it. But they haven't been able to do that just yet, which is a bit confusing for me.
So is that the answer for the team then, to just commit to the Bruiser meta, not even try to play the high-level AD carry style that we've been expecting from the likes of RNG, EDG, and IG?
Statistically, like I said, it's 100% in the favor of the Bruiser if you're not one of those top 4 teams. So I would say very much go all in on the Bruiser.
We'll have to see if they can pull it together. That being said, though, our casters are now ready to get us into Game 1 between LGD and JD Gaming.
相信这支年轻气盛的京东，相信过程。
Thank you very much, Dom and Clement. I'm here with my buddy Razzleplasm, and Raz, something the viewers don't know back at home is that there's a lovely pineapple graphic underneath this vest. But our producers said it is not allowed to see the light of day. So please Twitch chat #FreeThePineapple.
I don't want to see it. In fact, put another layer over it. It's ugly as hell. Just visualize the ugliest pineapple you've ever seen in your life.
It is a beautiful pineapple, and everyone should be allowed to see it. But it's been banned. But you know what? On the topic of that, while Twitch chat spams free the pineapple, or they're probably just spamming lol.
Okay, that works too.
Or spam this fissure to free the fissure, something like that. Apparently, the real question is, Raz, Twitch chat or YouTube chat?
Oh my God! Don't pit them against each other. Don't do it. I don't even want to hear this kind of battle.
Let us know, and if you want to tell us which one you prefer, tweet at Razzleplasm. That is the LPL hotline for all of your complaints or compliments. Send it over to that Twitter channel we created especially for complaints, especially. But let's get into this match, Raz.
Good God.
LGD taking on Jingdong Gaming.
So I heard Clement's stats going into this set, and let me hit you up with a stat of my own. So immediately, JD Gaming, even though they are 3-1 in this split thus far, they've gone to 3 games every single time.
Okay.
LGD have only won 1 game. So statistically speaking, it is very likely that LGD will double their win rate here.
Why?
Double amount of wins, I mean. Just the amount of wins that they have. One time they're winning 1 game, next time they're winning 2.
So you're saying
Top that, Clement.
You're saying that JD are going to go to game 3 against LGD, hence doubling their win rate? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
I'm not going to hear it from you, okay? I'm a stats major.
Where did you get this degree from?
The pineapple. So, ultimately, I expect JD to do quite well for themselves. I feel like a lot of the games that they've been having, remember the victory that they had versus Royal Never Give Up and recently versus Suning Gaming, they've been really stellar, just around their team fighting. And even though Clement's been talking about the fact that they've been winning their games while finding themselves in a deficit a lot of these times, it comes off of how they win these late game team fights. So expect this one to go on for quite some time versus LGD.
Let's see how it goes. And AD carries or bottom lane players are definitely going to be a focus to this matchup, because besides the fact that they're not on that list of the top tier AD carries, Loken and Y4 are well known to be great mechanical AD carry players. But we're into Champion Select for game number 1 of this best of 3. First 3 bans coming out from Jingdong. We see the Swain, Talia, as well as Shen being taken away. LGD, they're going to take away Yasuo, Lucian, as well as Ornn. First pick for JD, they're going to send Zoe into the mid lane for Yagao, picking up Camille shortly after. Irelia and Nocturne were the 2 picks coming out from LGD.
And even though we were talking about the AD carries for quite some time, Yagao and Yuki have turned into stars. Yagao, we've already talked about how he was potentially rookie of the split last time around in Spring Split. But he is a demon knight. He's a demon when it comes to pick ban, because he's already had 8 unique picks. The Yasuo ban is targeting him because his last set he was just going off on the pick. And the one pick that oftentimes people look at and say he should never have it is Zoe. But when you just style in so many picks, sometimes he'll get games like these where he's able to first pick it.
But Zoe is one of those champions that he stands out on.
Yes.
When he wants to have a carry performance. We often compare him to the likes of Jason Kidd, someone in the NBA that's really well known for his assists. That's Yagao. He sets up his team for success time and time again. But occasionally, he can be the superstar. He can carry a game for his team. And we saw that in their last set and even in their set against RNG. Yagao stepping up to plate, making sure they can hit it home for his team. Their final pick in the first draft was Dr. Mundo. Singed was the last pickup for LGD, immediately banning Rakan afterwards.
What I love is that both LGD and JD have left their AD carries to the bottom side of the second phase of this draft. So we can see what's happening on the top side of the map. Like JD are saying that their 2v2 around mid lane is going to be super strong, and that it's going to be Zoom that's going to be scaling up to the late game. And I want to see what LGD can do with Yuki, who's had solo kills on this Irelia time and again, and if he can actually take this matchup versus Yagao. So there's a lot of outplay potential in the mid lane. I want to see how the junglers can interact with that.
Interested to see what the final 2 picks from LGD are going to be, especially because now that Shen as well as Tahm Kench have been taken away, that's 2 of the global champions that are normally paired up with this Nocturne pick. Amy is not going to have access to the assistance from his allies from those 2 global champions. But it seems like the bottom lane is what's left for these 2 teams. Vladimir and Alistar were the last bans coming out from Jingdong. We'll see Rakan and Tahm Kench taken away. LGD can pick up their support, and they do. PYL will go for Fiddlesticks.
And here's the thing, there are so many unorthodox ways to support a Nocturne ulti. We just saw with OMG what they utilized is an Ash Arrow. Now they went across the globe with that Ash Arrow, but it goes to show that you can have utility in your AD carry. I'm looking at Kalista, for example, because Y4 has played that with such mastery. So it's going to be on LGD, holding on to their AD carry pick right to the very end. We get to see what he wants to play with it.
Because a couple of the analysts that I've seen on Twitter, especially from Oceania, have talked about how Kalista is a sleeper pick at the moment. They reckon is in a good spot. Haven't seen it too frequently in the competitive side of League of Legends just yet. Ezreal's going to be the first pick that comes out from JD, looking for their support being picked up by Alumel. They had good success with Leona last time they reigned the champion, and it's going to be their final pick as their support.
Lumao wants to be the be-all, end-all way that they start and end their fight. So he's on the Leona pick once again, and he would love to see how he's able to engage in this. A lot of it comes down to the level 6 power spike between Ezreal and Leona, and how that impacts the bottom lane. That is going to be an incredibly squishy bottom lane from LGD.
Yes, it is, because it's Fiddlesticks paired up with Kai'Sa. Y4 picking up a hyper carry in the bottom lane, one that builds more towards ability power in the late game. But as Comment was talking about on the desk, it's one of those 80 carries that looks for the 3rd item, and from that point onwards it gets much more difficult. Loken going towards the Ezreal, a champion that we thought to start the summer split would be very popular because he wasn't hit too hard by the changes to items moving into 8.11, which is the patch we're playing on for this best of 3 series. But he started to show up a lot more in week 2, and we're going to see Loken play it today.
Yeah, you know what? Ezreal has been the pick from the beginning of the split that was the most popular AD carry that came along with Kai'Sa. And the LCK, you saw the play rate on it, it's absurd. And it's just because compositionally it works so well around poke. And so I love to see this coming out of this team, that you see both the Zoe in the mid lane pick coming in from Yagao, but also the poke from Ezreal to top that off. So there's a lot of flexibility in JD's composition. They can't just poke later on in the game. They have the engage potential of Camille and Leona, so they are the deciders of how the fight starts and how it ends.
Lots of big potential coming out from JD. We've seen them quite frequently in their matches, especially from the end of Spring Split. Now even at the start of Summer Split, rely on Loken to be that late game insurance. He is a hyper carry and was playing a ton of hyper carries at the end of Spring Split. Ezreal has a much earlier power spike. So we'll have to see if he can carry JD to an earlier victory, because their mid lane and jungle synergy between Yagao and Clit is very strong. That helps them set up for a nice earlier mid game, but that's not often where JD end their matches.
Exactly. That's why this team feels like such a well-rounded team, and why they're picking up so many wins is because they can rely on so many people at so many stages of the game. Clit's early game has been phenomenal because much like MLXG, it starts the pressure, it starts the game rolling. He either gets himself an incredible lead with Yagao or things start out sluggish, but they always had the late game essential, or at least priority of their bottom lane.
And your stat kind of makes sense earlier. JD do always go to game 3, and they have for their past few wins, even their single loss.
Yeah.
But every time they've gone to that third match, when they eventually either, on the second or first match when they lose it, even the third when they finally lost the best 3 series, they still looked good there. And it's often been Loken trying to pull it back for the team. So you're right, they have been good early, they have been good mid, they are very well rounded, but they still can be exploited. And a couple of teams have exposed those exploits and tried to punish JD for it. It's still a strong team, still growing. For the side of LGD, however, they've gone through quite a few changes. They've lost Imp as their AD carry. They're bringing in Y4, which looks like a good improvement for their roster, but still yet to find a concrete victory.
Yes, and I want to talk about those new players, because that's what's really defining LGD. Specifically Y4, that's just joined up and is now taking stage instead of FDY. Because it's these 80 carries like Y4, or even like in the past splits from JD Gaming of Loken, that came into the forefront, that were behind another 80 carry to start. For Y4, it was Uzi. It was Abel. Exactly. Ooh. So we didn't get to see many games from him. He would start out in a spring split, and you'd be like, wow, this kid has some talent. I would love to see more from him. The only problem is he's behind Uzi, and you would much rather see Uzi play. With Loken, it was more complex. It was a 2 Korean strategy they would have. They're not going to be benching Doinby or Clit at the time, so you're just biding time for him to showcase how he plays, and my God, he's going off.
He was the savior for JD as well. In their late playoff run, he was one of the main factors for JD being able to push for it. Very strong on the hyper carries. Y4, as you mentioned, sitting behind Abel, sitting behind Uzi, alongside Shen P as well.
Yep.
All of which we are starting to see more play. Only Abel sticking with the RNG roster. These are top tier AD carries in their own right. And we didn't get to see them play at all during Spring Split, or not too much. And now they're being unlocked, and now they're moving to different teams, and the LPL was already stacked with AD carry talent, something that was talked about quite heavily moving into MSI.
And that's what I love about franchising, is that you have the 14 teams, and there's an abundance of incredible talented players, that you get to a point where even the bottom tier teams like LGD, you look at them and like, well, what is the actual problem? Because these guys are solo queue superstars. What's happening that they're not getting pushed to the next level? And so that's when they start having discussions about, well, we need to iron out our communication and our strategy. So bringing in UDG, the former JD coach, on a lease, you can see why they're starting to prioritize that. So this is why it's fun having these two teams go up against each other, because a former coach of one team is now helping out the next.
And we apologize to everyone watching back at home. There were a couple of technical difficulties going into the first match, but it has been remade. Same picks, same bans. As soon as that's ready to go, we'll get onto Summoner's Rift for that match.
Why are you apologizing? Look at these glasses. Every single one of these players are sporting some nice specs.
Raz, we get to see them and their spectacles in the game itself, but there's also League of Legends action happening there too.
I don't want to see this guy. Get him off his screen. He doesn't have glasses. What the heck? What is the cameraman thinking?
Raz, you normally don't wear glasses.
I'm a glasses aficionado.
On broadcast, yes. I am exposing you.
Every single time there's somebody that actually has an eye condition that's like, oh, let me see your glasses for a little bit. And they look at it, it's like, what the heck? There's no difference here. The only reason why I wear glasses is because I lose
you look
focus.
smart as an analyst.
No, get out of here. Real reason is because I lose focus. One eye is worse than the other. One eye is actually technically perfect, and the other one is actually just bad. So technically I can read things properly, but I just lose focus, so I'd rather have these eyeglasses on.
My eyes are green.
Are your eyes green?
Yes. I don't know, we're throwing at eye stats, so I didn't have any sort of I need glasses thing, so I thought the color would be relevant.
Okay, I'm cool.
In your analytical opinion, is that true?
Well, it is true, but it is ugly.
What?
There we go. Calling you out. You don't have good eyes. All the girls that be telling you differently were just lying, and we're trying to make you feel better. How does that make you feel?
You suck.
LGD, pick me up. Well, I'm going to have to test your skills first.
What does the rest of it say, Raz?
I have no idea.
Come on, you haven't been paying attention in Mandarin classes?
It's a long way to go. We only have one of those classes a week. I've been trying. I actually took, when I was taking the trip over here, I've been using Duolingo. You're welcome for the free advertisement. Where I was just
sell out,
working on the game, working on the language, and I'm just bad. So even though I just work on it, I was like, good Lord, I don't remember what I just learned 30 minutes ago.
I've witnessed a couple of you guys walk into a coffee shop and order coffee. And quite a few times, look, the cashier has asked, after you order your coffee in Mandarin, they've asked, do you want that to be hot or cold? And you proceed to follow up with, can I pay with WeChat?
But wait a minute.
That is not the correct answer to do you want it hot or cold.
That was likely months ago, where I can now answer properly when he asked that question. And maybe I'm just trying to say that my phone is hot, so you're losing context here.
Why would you be... No, you're asking if you can pay with your phone. Why would you be trying to say your phone is hot?
Maybe I just got a new phone.
That should actually imply the exact opposite, Raz. Your phone shouldn't be heating up if it's new. There's newer technology has been used.
See, here's the thing. You're not hip to the new words and culture. I'm saying hot as in nice. It is a nice phone.
Please get me out of here. Please get into the game as soon as we possibly can. I can't do this with you anymore, Raz. What the heck is going on?
This is what happens when you put two trolls right beside each other.
Two trolls? There's only one. Actually, no, there are two, but you're both of them.
I'm not going to even inquire about that.
But unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, we're still trying to get into that first match. As soon as we can, we'll let you guys know. If there's any updates on what's going on, give you notice as soon as we possibly can. These two teams, JD, have started strong to kick off Summer Split. LGD, like many other splits, Raz.
Okay.
I've started quite poorly, 0-4 at the moment.
But let's get in depth a little bit, because obviously we have the time to do that. So with LGD, sure, it's been quite poor, but I will say that the last game that I saw them was actually pretty nice. So the nice thing about it, sure, yeah, they took one win, but it was also just in how they did just that. I think that you started to see what you saw from PYL in the past, which you saw slower games when they actually had lane advantages. So slower games, you had the lane advantages, they went around Baron, they actually controlled it quite well. And on PYL's engaging options, you see them really look towards pick priority. So they're doing the right things when they had the gold inside them. That's actually one of the biggest faults for teams that perform poorly, is when they go to the late game. That's when everything flies out the window and you just see random fights. And essentially that's what happened with LGD in the past, but with that game alone, you saw some real progress.
Well, if you're talking about late game and random fights, I have an important question. Why 4? Upgrade over Imp, yes or no?
Oh my god. So, no. I'll say no immediately, just because people tend to forget that Imp on the team had some phenomenal plays. He played Ezreal quite frequently, and obviously if you play Ezreal you have a lot of DPS, but he would be one of the deciding factors of whether LGD won the game or not. It would either be Jinnu winning out in his lane, or Imp being able to get out of the laning phase properly, get his items, and then just have a stellar side lane teamfight. Or skirmish. It's never a teamfight with LGD.
Well, if you haven't been keeping up with the LPL, Imp is no longer with LGD. He has moved over to Team WE. Now, Team WE, they have 380 carries themselves, Raz.
Yes, they do.
Mystic, we've got Gentle, and we've got Imp. Which one would you start?
Well, I mean, they started with Gentle. I would start with Mystic immediately. I think Mystic has been with the team for much longer. has had the synergy with the team rather than the support, since they've been also cycling in supports. So Mystic is the easy answer. That being said, there's so much that we don't see. So they mentioned that performance in scrims is ultimately why they put in the player to begin with, which is fair. So Gentle performed apparently better in scrims, and they brought him on.
I mean,
and honestly,
well.
he played super well, actually.
Mystic is a god.
Mystic also, it came down to the fact that in the earlier games we had, their jungle mid-inted. They actually had such bad synergy, surprisingly so, for how well touted they were in their previous sets. Like, Spring Split was the split of CA, and last year was the year of Condi, and they combined together, and you just didn't expect that you'd get really bad plays. But Gentle played quite well in the bottom lane. That being said, Mystic came back, and Mystic was aggressive. You wanted to see more active plays early on, and that's what we got.
So what do you think the rationale behind picking up Imp was? Because if Gentle was performing well in scrims, he started and has played more games than Imp. Imp's only played a couple, and now Mystic came back and he's been playing non-stop. Now he's overtaken Imp in terms of games played. What do you think the rationale picking him up was?
I think a lot of the times the answer is just as easy as we had the contract with them, we picked them up as an insurance policy because we wanted to iron out which one is the best at the position. And then they found out afterwards. Because scrims actually start rather late. So you would get the players first, you'd go through practice, and you would realize afterwards that maybe we're not going to have much use out of this player. We don't know that answer just yet. Maybe in the future, Imp will start playing more frequently after if players do perform poorly. But there's an inherent risk of picking up a player because you want to bolster your roster, and then maybe your starting rosters is better. Maybe Mystic starts to split incredibly well. So it's a tough one. But I'll tell you something that ain't tough.
What's that?
The game is actually starting, Fish.
It is. It was tough to get into this match though, Raz. We're finally going to make it. Seems like the lobby has been remade, all the problems have been solved. So let's go ahead. Let's go and get on to Summoner's Rift. It's going to be game number 1. JD Gaming taking on LGD.
All right, I've lost faith in them chanting.
Where is he?
They're not coming.
Where's the manager?
They're all gone. They've muted him.
Why? There he is. We found him.
There we go.
This first match against JD also marks Amy's 200th game in the LPL.
Remember, he started out by bringing Vici Gaming into the LPL to begin with. His history was pretty long. People don't remember too much because he came in as an incredible prospect, and then things didn't work out when he went to unlimited potential. So that's an interesting history that he's had thus far, and he's still on a growing period. So let's see if it works out for him.
Very early, very early fight here. Seems like there was an evade coming out from JD. Cleared as well as Zoom, going aggressive, but there's 4 members of LGD here trying to defend this red buff, and Amy gonna pick it up nice and easy. That's the second time this week we've seen such an early invade against a Nocturne, but Yagao now collapsing as well.
Get out of there.
He's level 2. Picked up by Zoe here. Yagao's gonna try and jump in. Exhaust used nice and early, but the support, he's still here as well. So they defend against the invading by Clid, and Clid doesn't get anything for it.
Amy just needed to protect himself at all times, ultimately because it's Y4 who's here alone. So this was a risk that LGD was taking by bringing in an extra member from the bottom lane. It did pay off because Amy got his buff, and he's actually trucking along much faster than Clid is. So you know what? LGD is doing quite well off this.
So Clid's going to move and straight away pick up Scuttle Crab for himself, whereas Lumao wants this one.
Wow.
Great control coming out from the mid laner of JD as well as the bottom lane from JDG. Remember, the support didn't start in the lane for LGD, so they couldn't help out in securing that. So both Scuttle Crabs go to JDG.
And this is just great communication from Jingdong as a whole. The fact that they got this push in the bottom lane because, you're right, PYL wasn't here. So they just utilized that to say, hey, we see you on Scuttle Crab. You have a proper ward there. We're just going to push you off. So already just showing that JD have an early game lead, and it's LGD. They're always on the back foot here.
So Clid's going to take some time to clear out the rest of his jungle camps, so we saw him have a very delayed start, but JD did a good job of denying Amy as well. A ward was placed down on his blue buff, Loken and Lumao, while they had the push against LGD's bottom lane. They were able to sneak in there, stop him from taking it the first time round, make sure he went back to walls. Nocturne is a jungler. that normally tries to get a nice tempo lead early to hit level 6, start those semi-global ganks, whereas for the side of Clid, he can sit back and relax almost, because Camille is already online. Hook shots available, he can start to go for those early ganks.
That's why I would say Yuki has a target on him. You talked about Amy just needs to farm it up until 6. Well, you're right. Clid's online, and he has a Sleepy Trouble bubble in the mid lane. The 2v2 that we see here so often, it's either Lulu Camille or Zoe Camille, and it just makes it so much easier for a gank to be taken off. So usually you'd see a cleanse or a TP for the mid laner to go up against that. This time it's Ignite Aurelia, so Yuki's not going to have a friend in Amy. He's just going to have to be really cautious here in how he props the wave.
Yep. But it's been very quiet so far in that mid lane. Yagao starting the game nice and strong. Already used the exhaust. We saw that in the level 1 fight. But has a nice CS lead for himself against this Aurelia. Shoving in quite well. Exhaust being used once again. Paddlestar going out. Pops to sleep. It gets good damage onto Aurelia. But Yuki turns around. That's the Ignite ticking on Yagao. But just a trade coming out from LGD's mid laner.
This gives a lot of information to Clid about the playstyle of Yuki right now. Yuki just wants to contest, doesn't want to lose the first lane. So Clid is just waiting here for when the next Sleepy Trouble bubble hit, because Yuki wants to be able to start a fight.
Almost feel like if that stun connected coming out from Yuki, that might have been go time for Aurelia and potentially the gank coming out from Clid. Still waiting in Fog of War just in case something happens in the mid lane. Lumao trying to travel around the blue side of LGD's jungle as well, just placing down a couple of wards, helping secure the first random spawn Scuttle Crab.
Yeah, this is just a little tricky though. Yagao doesn't have much mana to his name. He needs to find a proper back timing, but he used the push that he had to support an invade by Clid. So Clid has got to pay it forward and give Zoe a good back timing here.
Alright, Raz, we haven't seen too much early game action besides the level 1 invade and a couple of trades. So it's going to try and see if he can change that in the mid lane, but he's still just waiting in Fog of War. While we wait for him, Raz, what do these two teams want to do in this match to try and win this game?
Right now, it's LGD that wants to get Yuki out of lane with Trinity Force, and then hopefully find him on side lanes. Because if you look at JD's composition, that's not very good in terms of 1-3-1. They want to group up as much as possible. Mostly it's going to be Yagao that's going to be opened up if he's ever on a side lane. So LGD, it's slow because they want it to be slow. If they find an opportunity in the early game, they'll take it, but it's better for them to wait it out.
I mean, it feels like they have the scaling AD carry in this matchup as well. Ezreal's Power Spike will bring him online quite early.
That's true.
He does scale well into the late game, but he is up against a Kai'Sa. So pushing also works well with the Singed, as well as the Nocturne being picked up by LGD. So let's see if they play towards that playstyle. Still good pick potential with the Brawl-heavy top side and the Fiddlesticks in the bottom lane. As far for the side of Jingdong, you mentioned that they kind of want to group up. So how do they attack this early game? If LGD want to be slow, doesn't that mean JD want to try and make this as fast as possible?
Yes, and I would say at level 6 is when the actions should start up, mostly around Lumao. Lumao on the Leona, he wants to be able to follow up on a gank, which is why this situation is actually really preemptive coming in from JD. Sure, Clid can start this off, but how do you follow it up? I think Y4 and PWL should be prepared. They both have flashes up.
They're going to try and jump in. Lumel goes in first, locks down Kai'Sa. Redemption coming in from Zoe to kick off some more damage, but they put down the Ignite. Zoe throws in a Trouble Bubble, gets blocked by Amy, but just some damage coming out from JD. A couple of Summoners burnt, but LGD disengaged fantastically.
Yeah, so that was just a really precarious situation, but Clid recognizes now that Y4 is fairly low, so if LGD as a team make a mistake in basing without him, then you know, they can find a dive on him, possibly, maybe even a dragon pick. But this is how weird this game is starting to be, because I would say Jingdong made the poor decision of trying at that really early on. So now, no flash on Lumao because he just goes for it. And Y4 and PWL still have their summoners available.
So what would have been the right play coming out from JD? Wait for a few more minutes, try and bring Yagao closer for that gank?
Yeah, because Clid would have been 6 himself. Had he look at the top side of his own camps, his Wolf camp, his Gromp were still up and available. He could have passed top side and had called for his bottom line to play safely. Then they would have pinged 6. Bottom lane would have been much more accessible. Sometimes patience is the right call if you know how to set up for the play.
Still feels like he could set up for a play again.
Oh,
but
wow.
no flash and ignite available for Luma. However, he is setting up for a mid lane gank. Dodge coming out from Yuki, goes aggressive. Nocturne's going to dive in as well. Throws out the ultimate, going to disarm a couple of champions. Yuki still taking a lot of damage, goes forward at first blood being picked up. The fancy footwork coming out from Irelia, still dashing back in. Clint's in trouble. Suddenly there's a Singe down here too. 2 kills being picked up by LGD.
This is impatience from Jingdong as a whole. Why is Lumao trying to set up for a Leona play without his ulti? Quick answer was that they thought the play was going to be started from LGD and he was going to be coming as a response. So it was okay. The stopwatch went off. They just didn't have the follow-up damage. Yuki was so low, but remember what these skirmishes actually are. Because if the first kill comes down, it is super snowbally because Triumph is being procced by Yuki time and again. Was blinking red, but by the end of the play was super fine. So look at this. They're trying to get Yuki. They were focusing on the kill, and it was just between Zoe and Yuki. Yuki comes out ahead, and he has Triumph. So from this point forward, he's just safe. It's just LGD going balls to the walls to get more kills because no one is unsafe anymore.
Beautiful to watch as well. Yuki getting that stun through the portal jump, making sure that there was nowhere Yagao could go when he went for that fight. Now, ultimate in the bottom lane, Y4 just blows the flash nice and early, doesn't want to risk anything in that bot lane.
So look, the wave is proper. Had these plays had not been made, then you could actually start the fight by flash E-ing. The flash comes from Y4, you can follow up with a Leona ulti, Clid follows up. This is what a proper team would do at this point. So you can see that all of this is being strung out, resources are being used and not in the proper times and in unison. So even though JDG right now are pretty high up in the standings, if they continuously play like this and go up against top tier teams like RNG, if they face RNG again, they'll start losing games.
And it comes back to what we talked about earlier before we got into this first match. The fact that JD, yes, they're trying to adapt to the early game. They're trying to throw in compositions that help them out through early and mid game. But they're known to be that late game team, so they often make mistakes like we just saw, going a little bit too aggressive, too early, not waiting for the right levels, not waiting for the right power spikes, and definitely engaging when LGD wanted them to. Now LGD, all they really had to do so far is sit back, relax, and farm up. Now they're scaling up nicely as well with the 2 kills they've picked up.
Yeah, and here's the thing, for a coach to be watching this kind of game, yeah, sure, you can pinpoint the problems very easily, but the great things is when you pinpoint positives, right? Because that's something you can show your team and say, I want you to keep doing this. LGD, like Amy and Yuki, had set this one up incredibly well. Nocturne has ulti. He can actually look for a dive quite easily, knowing that Zoe's not here to defend this. So this comes down to execution now.
Trying to see if they can get a dive going in the bottom lane, but it doesn't matter. They bring 4 members down. They play Mahjong on the bottom side, but they pick up a turret for themselves. The first turret of this match, creating a 2,000 gold lead for LGD.
Super well played, and you want to see more from it. Now the question is, what do they do? I mean, Ocean Dragon's available, and technically you want to start stacking that up against the poke team of Zoe and Ezreal. So my take is maybe just send your bottom lane back to the bottom lane again once they base.
And I liked your point about picking out the positive things coming out from teams, especially if you're a coach looking towards that. Is that something that even JD can do? Because they're still making the correct plays, just at the wrong time.
Yeah, 100%. JD, as long as they can focus on the good things, let's see if they can defend
Big fight in the mid lane. Fiddlestick's going to just jump in and immediately Yagao gets popped. Clid's going to try and join this fight with a teleport coming in from Loken. The 80k of JD looking for this fight. Big double stun coming out from Yuki. Locks him down. Throws out the Defiant Dance. Takes absolutely no damage. Dashes around. Doesn't even fall to the Ignite. Lives to fight another day. 2-0-3. Big plays from LGD.
Incredible startup from LGD and the outplay to end it all. Yuki is so far ahead now. 2-0-3. He is so close to his Trinity Force. I want to see if he can back and get it right now.
Probably could. He's playing incredibly well in this Irelia. 2 outplays already in 1 match, Raz.
Boom. He gets it. And they're diving right now for the Lumao. Okay, he's alright.
He gets good damage onto the Leona, but not enough to take him down.
But you're right. Yuki on Irelia, he is once again showcasing why you want to take it away from him time and again. He sets it up, stun. You know what? Now your Zoe is dead. JD don't have Zoe. Why are you going in a 1v3 matchup? Loken thinks he can outplay, and honestly, if he places his ulti a little bit farther to the right, he can get it. But that's just a chance thing. Seeing if Amy will go up or down, he's wrong. It's the wrong choice. It's okay. He's trying to make up for the previous mistake. I still like it. So JD as a team, they fall, and they continue to just fall in one by one.
Still trying to make the right plays, but again, LGD just beat them to the punch time and time again, reacting to the aggression that's being thrown out by JD quite nicely. Almost feels like soon that 1-3-1 composition that they can run, or the split pushing that we could see out of LGD, would start to come online. And the question is, where do we start to see that? Because JD's still fighting, still taking objectives, like Rift Herald being taken up.
Yeah, I would say immediately. Sure, Dragon's being done now, but right after this, they've already put their pieces in the right spot. Y4 and PYL are mid, and they might actually start moving themselves up, but I just want to see Aurelia immediately going to the bottom lane and match the Mundo, because she'll do quite well in that.
They could still be setting up for a dive against Yagao. Fiddlesticks is here. Ultimate is available for PYL. Amy's going to try and jump in as well. Everyone diving on top of this Zoe, but Amy goes a little bit too far. Gets put to sleep, exhausted as well. Pops the stopwatch at the right time and has Sins trying to protect him. Clint will lock down the jungler. Yagao forced to jump away as stopwatch. Amy is one with the wolf camp. Sleeper cell Amy is able to get away. JD are not done just yet though. Following up with a full-blown fight. Yuki still with the outplay buttons. Picks up another one. I4 is getting a double kill, looking for more. Another goes to Yuki. Big team fight from LGD.
And it all starts with Amy, who is Mr. Dances with Wolves. 1 HP and he comes out ahead. LGD just blew this game wide open, 9-1 on a fantastic team fight.
Beautiful. Reacting so well for the first few fights that JD threw their way. Then starting their own play. Once you said it yourself, Raz, their composition came online and executing it so well, even when JD tried to disengage.
It was just so well done, because you'd see these plays done by LGD before. It's not the first time they try and dive into it, but the cohesion to follow up on Nocturne. Usually from this point forward, Amy dies, the rest of them fall in one by one, and things don't look good. Y4 immediately goes into the backline, but instead of chasing down Camille, he just waits until they get one kill to the next. So they're incredibly patient, their focus fire is on point, Nocturne walks away, and he doesn't need to actually come back. So this is just proper communication from LGD.
Another big stun coming out from Yuki as well in the middle of that team fight. The crucial flash from Amy over to the Wolf Camp, getting away from the briefcase being thrown out by Zoom. Brings him back to safety, helps win the team fight for LGD. They only lose one member. After the team fight, we see JD throw Rift Herald into the top lane, looking to try and take down a structure. They get one for themselves, but it's already a 5,000 gold lead for LGD.
And I was applauding Aurelia when she had her Trinity Force super early on. Now she's based and she's got herself a Merc Tread. So she's doing so well with the magic resist that she's going to be having against Yagao. And the, I would say, sleep resistant now, I suppose. So this matchup is super bad for Yagao. He doesn't want to ever find himself in a side lane 0-3-0 when he doesn't have a proper item for himself. So it's disaster mode for JD. They need to find something and something fast. And Clit has been known for looking for, I would say, risky plays when they find themselves behind. So this game ain't over yet.
No, it's not over yet. JD can rely on their late game, which is where they're incredibly strong. But LGD look relentless when it comes to pressuring JD so far in this match. Reacting well to the first few plays, now making their own. They are going to continue to keep up this pressure, starting with that split push. They've got Singed on the bottom side of the map, sending a couple of members to the top lane to take down another outer turret. Y4 gets that for himself.
Ooh, and take a look at this bottom side too, because this is trading sides that JD is opting for. Smart from Jinu to just completely back away from the weak side of the map. You want to see this happening. Usually LGD ends up trading lives for these plays. This time around comes out cleanly ahead, so now we get to see what LGD do with the tempo that they have in the top side of the map.
They've still got about 3 minutes until Baron spawns as well. This is where teams start to falter and are not quite sure what they're meant to be doing. So far, just trading sides of the map, trading turrets, bottom lane and top lane turrets slowly fall.
And you know what? I would agree with Jingdong, and I don't know what they're meant to do either. Because usually you would say, okay, turtle up, we have a good pokes comp. Maybe if we can get Y4 incredibly low, we can just throw a Leona LT on top of it. That's fair. But that's a second Ocean Dragon coming up. So even if LGD pivot to put pressure and vision towards bottom side, which they're currently doing for the Dragon that's coming up, they have the composition to just burst through a Baron, so they can try and do, you know, vision on the bot side, clear vision on the top side, and make it really difficult for Jingdong to choose. So right now LGD have so many options in front of them.
PYL was even threatening for a dive there. Instead finds Dr. Mundo inside of JD's jungle. The rest of LGD sieging the mid lane inner turret. They get good damage on it, knocking it below half health. This entire time, Juno is still split pushing for the squad.
Take a look at the 3 excellent control wards from LGD. He got it. 3 control wards on the bottom side of the map. 1 cutting him out. It's really close to Raptors, going to be cleared out right now. But 2 of them right towards Dragon that they want to support in about a minute. So there's no vision from JD over there because they haven't had the time.
There's 1 more control ward in the top lane brush. Is that important, Raz?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
Sometimes it will be because that'll just last for a lifetime. And maybe you can get a proper flank TP play, but that one's just going to be ignored for so long until that point.
But they do have the 2 wards over by the second Ocean Dragon, which is going to spawn in 40 seconds. A minute until Baron is up and online. LGD have a nice 5,000 gold lead, a good buffer against JD, but not a lead that we haven't seen JD come back from before.
That's true, and it's always scary, especially if you're on a team with Loken and Yagao. And they just find themselves miracle fights because they're super skilled. So, you know, maybe they'll get a poke. That's why people actually just hate Zoe as a champion.
Just look at the gold though, Raz. Top lane is quite even, about 300 separating the 2, but it starts to fall from there. 1,000 between 80 carries and junglers, but then in the mid lane, it's 2,000 in favor of Yuki. That's a big Irelia.
That hurts. And it hurts even more when Yagao is splitting between both items, both Luden's Echo and the Zhonya's. He finally has the Zhonya's now, but not having a completed item just really hurts in any combat sense. So right now Yagao has been just scaling up, has Zhonya's for whenever they get into a skirmish, he can just protect himself. But I'm not looking towards him to actually apply any real damage.
We'll also be looking at the items being picked up by 80 carries. Loken completing the Trinity Force, as well as Manamune still stacking towards a Muramana. Whereas for the side of Y4, he's picked up his Gwintu's Rage Blade. Nash's Tooth is complete as well. Waiting for that 3rd item to start being the hyper carry that Kai'Sa is known for. Even in the top lane, Juno going towards the Rylai's Crystal Scepter first. Not opting to go for a Shurelius, not opting to go for one of the run fast, move really quick items to start. Instead wants to slow him down. Righteous Glory, that should be picked up next if his components don't lie to me.
Yeah, and so I want Righteous Glory immediately because with how well they're doing right now, 5k golden lead, 20 minutes into the game, and their item breakpoints are really hitting it. Nashor's Tooth for Y4, they want to fight. That's what they want to do. So setting up for it is key, and so as long as Singed gets a push in the bottom lane, he should join his team with Righteous, and they should try and run them down. It's almost as easy as that. As long as they can get one fling, I suppose, Y4 can follow up.
So then what's JD's plan?
Hope to God no one gets flung. Just try their hardest to track Jinnu, and if he's behind them, then scatter like wolves.
But for now, curious to see how they get back into the match as well. Because yes, that's going to be good when Singed runs straight at them, but eventually they've got to find a way to capitalize on LGD trying to set up for things like this Baron, or try and set up for the picks they've been diving for.
Ultimately, it's wave clear. It's the boring option, but it's what you need. Loken needs time. If he goes towards his 2nd tier, then yes, he needs much more time. But ultimately, he's going to be utilizing his ultimate to be pushing waves. Mid lane is going to be the one that's priority, so they can try and buy for as much time as possible before LGD start Baron, so they can try and contest. But if LGD do the right thing, which is rush Baron, and then try to force a fight immediately afterwards, then they don't have time on their side, and JD just have to focus on execution in this fight.
They set up for this quite well. I mean, JD were waiting in the bush for quite some time to try and catch out someone from LGD looking to go for a couple of wards. Still using the wards they have to get good poke damage onto Jinnu. Pops his Corrupting Potions and should be able to heal back up later on. But there's still one little ward, which they're standing on top of now.
It hurts.
Shows where LGD are. That Paddle Star almost connecting with Jinnu as well. That would have sent him back to base, but does have Teleport available on the Mad Scientist.
And the lesson to how you send control wards out there for Baron when you're on the red side of the map is you don't want to put a control ward in the pit itself. You can do it when you're actually rushing down the Baron, but that's the least contested area for wards. The river itself is where you need to actually place those control wards, because that's where the blue team will be streaming in from. They're streaming in from the blue side of the jungle to the Baron itself, so you want to actually push the line of scrimmage so you actually don't get contested. So that control ward, not necessary. If you have another control ward, please move it.
Still 8-11, and we haven't seen any Banner of Commands being picked up. Jinu is not currently split pushing. He's grouping with his team, even though he has teleport available.
And look at that bot lane wave too. That's actually going to be slowly pushing. If you're JD, you're going to be happy about that.
Top lane is pushing for LGD, but it's a bit too close to Baron for their comfort.
Yeah. So JD are happy right now that they can deal with top lane wave while at the same time contesting vision. So it's going to be up to LGD that, let's see, who can actually send? No one has a banner. So it's LGD actually has to manually do it. They have to manually kill the range creeps minions on the bottom side of the map. So that's what Jinu is doing right now. And then hopefully from that point forward, they can fully push that wave out alone.
Well, they know that Singe is on the bottom side of the map.
What is
Yuki,
Yuki
though, is able to get a double stun and wants to start a fight. PYL jumps in as well, but they jump on top with Dr. Mundo. He gets the ultimate off before they get started. Amy wants to go deep, still chasing onto this tank, healing up quite a bit of hit points, but ultimate is going to slowly run out. Yuki in the back line zone. He gets one. Dr. Mundo falls. Kaiser gets a double kill, and Limao's the next target. He's forced to flash over the wall, and just out of nowhere, Yuki starts a fight. LGD finish it.
Full confidence on Yuki. He doesn't even need Jinu to start the fight. He just sees members, and he's like, I'm going right now. I can make the kill happen. So ultimately, yes, correct answer, and it nets them a Baron to start.
LGD after 4 losses, Raz. Why 4 starts for the squad? And they look so damn good in game 1.
They're making the right calls. I've always been wondering how the organization has been, you know, putting the puzzles together. So immediately, UDJ comes in, proper coaching, proper, I would say, structure for the team. And here are the talented players. Yuki coming in fresh last spring split. And now you can see the confidence starting to pile in for him to make plays like these. To just dive right through on a Clid, get the kill, and immediately push Loken away from the fight. So Yuki is getting better and better as a player, more confident the more he comes on stage. And he's making Hangzhou his own.
I mean, he's 5-0 and 6 on Aurelia at the moment, putting on a show. Actually a clinic for Yagao on how to play the champion. Look at that damage! Oh my god! Clint did 0! He didn't even touch anyone in that team fight.
He was running away the entire time. He didn't want to feel, he knew that fight was a loss the moment it started. I respect that.
Big team fight in favor of LGD. They've opened up the map. 9,000 gold in the lead over JD just 25 minutes in. Jinu taking a lot of damage there, but with Baron buff available, and with 2.5 minutes of the buff available, LGD can continue to push through for these structures inside of the base of JD.
And we touched on the Dragons starting to pile in for this team. Now, I guess they're going to be piling in themselves.
From downtown again. Amy jumps in and Clid gets popped. The jungler from JD said they fling back Dr. Mundo. Zoom's meant to be a tank, but he's so squishy.
Yuki's in.
Irelia, because Yuki's in. 1-on-3, doesn't care. Defiant dance, stopping a lot of damage. Here, go falls. Double kill being picked up by White4.
25 minutes. JDG are getting battered around by LGD. That's a monkey.
They're getting smacked. That is a monkey, Raz. LGD. Poor start to the summer split of the LPL, but their game 1 against JD was so clean, only dropping a single kill and 2 turrets. The Nexus falls. LGD get game 1.
You know what? That monkey has a hell of a grimace. This is a new LGD in town. What the hell are we seeing?
The LGD with the monkey, Raz. That's what we're seeing at the moment. And no, those scores aren't wrong. It's 3-1 for JD at the start of the split. LGD are currently 0-4.
Here's where my stat comes in.
Oh no. Don't.
JDG, here's the narrative, my friend. 3 games every time. Now, they might have a slick 3-1 standings, but they always go to the 3rd game. But is LGD going to break it? Because that was an insane first game. The LGD fans are looking like, nah, it happens every time when we come here. I'm expecting it at this point. What do you expect, Fish?
Well, if LGD keep playing like that, that's a 2-0 right there. How do you stop that?
It's actually really scary. So I'm going to immediately be the defenders of JD, because you find yourself in a deficit as you bat around that bottle of water. And how are you going to come back with a poke composition when the enemy team has 2 Ocean Dragons? Now, that's one of those things that you're like, even though that didn't even come a problem because they were getting battered around in team fights, that seems like a done deal game from that point forward. So going into the next game, I will immediately say support your boy, Yagao, because he's getting died repeatedly.
Ooh.
And if you find yourself with a poke comp, let's fight around Dragon a little bit more often. It feels hard to say that because LGD just looked that much better. So let's start with vision control and then them.
It seemed like that the right strategy just executed their plays at the wrong time. LGD capitalized on that and looked fantastic in game number 1. Let's send it back to the desk to break down that match.
And that's exactly what we're going to do. LGD taking game 1 over JD in a complete surprise. Now, we know they've been working on stuff. They've got a new coach behind the scenes. They've got a new AD carry. But Clement, this was, I think, a much faster turnaround than anyone could have expected for an LGD game 1 win against JD of all teams. They just beat Royal Never Give Up a week and a half ago.
You know, like, they did double their wins with that game, and of course they don't double their win rates because that's actually Raz math, and that's wrong, so just so everyone knows. They do go to 2 games, and the big thing about this game, of course, number 1, highlight player, Yuki with the big plays right there, and the holistic thing is that they all went in at the same time. Like, this is something that we don't see from LGD quite often. They group up a lot, but they don't really do it in tandem with each other. And I think this time they drafted a composition where the go button is very clear. It's the lights being turned off.
Yeah.
And they just hit it with such a ferocity that Jingdong weren't ready.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing. JD were unprepared, it looked like, coming into this game. This was JD trying to take a fight, but the quick turnaround. Jinnu coming from the collapse in the top lane. He didn't teleport. He pushed in top lane and walked in. This just seems like a bit of miscommunication from JD that snowballed that first fight.
Yeah, and that's actually PYL calling most of the shots right there. Going to the mid lane before anyone else and also having the side lane push to commit to that strategy. Now, in terms of the drafting phase, Aurelia is a counter to Zoe, but I was actually quite surprised they did not take away the Camille with it and left the Camille open for Clid at that point. And Zoe Clid is the most common combination we see Zoe with, and it's really apparent why. They have immense level 2 kill pressure, and that goes a lot to props to Yuki because he kept himself alive through the 1-5. He had the weaker jungler in the Nocturne, but he kept himself alive, and when Nocturne finally hit 6, he was able to snowball off it incredibly hard.
Yeah, we constantly saw those fights in the mid lane. Once that Nocturne was engaged time and again, Amy just walking in, even PYL getting in there, the dives we heard onto Yagao. He tried to play defensively, but when you're already hugging your turret and 3 people are diving, what else can you do?
Yeah, and this goes to like show what Jingdong's not very good at. They always commit to team fights. They're always teleporting in. There was never a team fight where they lost only one person. If we're dying, we're all dying together. That's basically what they said over and over again. And I think this is the trend we've been seeing from Jingdong, and sometimes they can bring teams down to their level where there's no cohesion. There's just like small fights happening all over. That's actually how they beat RNG. But against teams that are going in one wave and just slaughtering you time and again, that type of strategy doesn't really work out. So.
Even when they realized that they shouldn't be fighting, it wasn't a full realization that they shouldn't be fighting. We saw Yuki land a 2-man stun over the wall in River to start off and engage, and LGD just dogpiled onto JD and chased him through the jungle. And again, JD tried to turn and run, but did not fully commit to running. So they ended up losing a whole lot more than they should have. I think Raz mentioned it in the cast. Clid was the only one who was close to it, doing a grand total of 0 damage because he just turned and split as best he can.
Yeah, a lot of the times what Jingdong should have been doing was just like straight up running away with their players and not trying to go in at the same time. The mobility from LGD is too much for them to match, but you can see in this fight exactly how they're going in again after losing the players. Kai'Sa's still alive, and PYL actually has a great stopwatch here to take out a lot of the damage coming in from Loken. And you do have to remember, at the end of the day, what we're talking about ADCs and especially Ezreal is that they're kind of 3-item power spike champions. They're not exactly meant to be fighting while they're having a tier stack at the same time.
And even then, it was without a completed item. I believe at that point it was still Manamune, not transformed, and the Sheen and I think a Phage as well for that Ezreal. So he was tickling people with the Qs. Not quite enough to do big hits.
Overall, I don't really like the idea of running a Poe composition in the 8.11 meta. We're seeing Bruiser be much more successful, and there's way too many ways to engage on you. This game, Singe didn't even have to start a Righteous Glory. He knew that Aurelia and Nocturne could do the job. He could start a Rylai's and still catch up with everyone. So going for a Poe composition that shows a lot of confidence, but I think it's just overconfidence. It's overconfidence in the ability for Yagao and Clid to carry the early game when LGD shown and Yuki
got focused
shown.
and they got camped.
Yeah, they know that, okay, you have the Camille, I'm going to back off and I'm going to wait till 6 and we're going to pummel you when it comes to the paranoia. So they've shown that patience to play. I think Jingdong need to change their strategy, not go for something that fragile, but join the fray. come with the bruisers.
So as a celebration of that, Yuki will take the MVP on that Aurelia in the mid lane for LGD. 5-0-8. He was the one who landed that final stun that set up the chase down for LGD to win the game. And of course, was able to get the outplay on Tiagao in laning phase, not once but twice.
And this is the new face of LGD. He's been known on the Korean ladder for a very long time. A lot of mid laners sing praise about him. Over 1,000 challenger points over there, and he's just been doing great for himself. We talked about LGD at the start of the day, and Yuki's lane is the only winning lane on the team. I think it makes sense to give him counter picks. I think it makes sense to play a composition that is centered around him making plays going forward.
Well, hopefully LGD will be able to continue doing this, but Clement, we've got to get back to what you just said a moment ago. How did JD change their game plan coming into game 2? Was it just lack of preparation coming into these fights, coming into this game against LGD?
I think, first of all, they need to clean up their fight timing, not go in all the time, actually recognize and play around your time, your power spikes and your cooldowns, which is not something they're really known for.
Yeah.
The second thing is just retool your composition. Don't go all in on the Zoe. Don't go all in on the Pocomps. Pocomps have not worked out this patch. There's only one team that made that work, and that's Mystic WE. Nobody else is playing it. Go for something else.
Yeah, they'll have a chance as we get ready to take a quick break. Game number 2 between JD and LGD is coming at you in just a few.
不破不立，只有经历巨变，老干爹才能重获新生。